The person who answered that phone, though, his name is Jonathan English. Can you hear me, Jonathan? Over.
I can hear you now, definitely.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Now, Jonathan, there'll be a few people who are going, I recognise that name, sort of. Jon English, he was your dad.
He was indeed. He was indeed. And I inherited the name and the somewhat overly dry look at the world. But, look, you just do the best with what you got, I think.
And I guess you've only been asked this question about 978 billion times. So let me ask it anyway. What's it like growing up with exactly the same name as your dad, who just happens to be one of Australia's best-known musicians?
It started out a little shaky, and then it got better as it went along, because the more younger people I hung out with, they didn't quite know him. But all their mums and dads would be like, "Oh, you're John Junior," and I was not that keen on the junior tag. But now, honestly, it's an absolute honour nowadays for me. But I think I went through some awkward teenage moments.
Yeah, there. And fair enough too. When you and I have only known each other, a short time, we've been talking on the phone a few times, and I've always referred to you as Jonathan. Is that what your friends call you, or do your friends actually call you John?
I mean, we're in Australia. I've been Jono and Johnny and Jay and
J-Man, yeah.
That's right, everything. Jonathan is what I go by just to just to differentiate, because you don't necessarily want to be taken from the legacy too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, it means you don't need to have the junior on the end of it. So
all true.
We don't just randomly pick people to ring. We did want to talk about your father's career, but also there is a special reason why we have decided to reach out to you. Let's talk about, you hear this expression a lot, and in this case, it is absolutely warranted. The great Jon English. We probably knew about him before you did.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known about him my entire life, but I'm 44 and he was doing a lot of stuff before then.
Well, my first interaction with, and I think I mentioned this to you last time we spoke, your dad single-handedly destroyed my interest in going to see any form of musical theatre, because in 1973 I went to the Palais. Obviously, I was very, very young in those days. Saw him perform as Judas Iscariot in Jesus Christ Superstar, and at that point of time, I was so blown away by his performance that anything I go and see now just pales into insignificance. I don't care who I'm going to see. He was absolutely phenomenal.
Honestly, I've heard it from so many people over the years too. It's so wonderful. Someone released a sort of bootleg live dub of that show at the Capitol. Sorry, not the Capitol, at the Palais in Melbourne, and just the production alone from the audio is just so phenomenal. I've never seen any footage of it aside from little grabs, but it really was such a game changer. And the fact that they really wanted to marry the theatrical experience with just rock and roll, as far as going with young unknowns like Dad and Trevor White at the time, and John Paul Young and Stevie Wright, of course, coming off the Easy Beats. These guys were commanding theatrical stages and just owning it with such aplomb and swagger. And Dad landed the golden role of Judas, so he was happy as.
And I think the other thing that, again, you probably don't understand at your age, nor probably people, your age generally. But at that time, my father was a member of a local church, and there was no way in the world that he would ever set foot in to see A, rock music, and B, blasphemy. I mean, they were pushing it uphill a bit with some of the more traditional aspects of the fraternity. Well,
absolutely, and I think that again, you have to tip your hat to Harry M. Miller there, who actually produced the show, and he had that wonderful campaign about the most important show you'll ever see. He sent it across all radio and TV, and it was about reaching out to the Christian community to say, look, I know this is a rock opera, this is a big step, but this is the way we're going to get the youth to understand the message. Of course, it's the gospel according to Judas, so even good-minded Christians, maybe like your father, took that extra bold step to see it and suddenly saw Judas Iscariot being pillared. Is pretty intense. But
no, well, I think my mum took my brother and me to see it, and I remember coming home that night. It was a Friday night. We'd played footy at school and I was really, really tired. Went to bed, got up next morning. Fair to say that there wasn't a lot of warm, convivial conversation going on because I think there'd been an element of, well, you've gone and done that, and, you know, it was just a bit tense. But then...
I can imagine.
You can also, you know, you mentioned some of the names, but you haven't mentioned, you know, Russell Hitchcock, Graham Russell, and Chrissy Hammond, who went on to create Air Supply. Gigi, I can always forget his name. He was in it.
Tommy Dysart.
That's it, Tommy Dysart. Reg Livermore was in it. The version I saw had Michelle Forden in the Mary role, but when it got to Sydney, there was a girl called Marcia Hines, I think her name was. She stepped up to the plate, having been in Hair, another controversial Harry and Miller production, and took over. I mean, it's a fairly good old-fashioned who's who of Australian music. Rory O'Donoghue was another one that was in it.
You can watch playbacks of Countdown and be blown away at how many of the Superstar alumni are in that, and just how much they dominated the 70s in the entertainment world after that. It was such a launch pad for people, or it reinforced their already stellar career. Like, no one took a backward step with Superstar, I think. Well,
you could say that the Superstar alumni were, in fact, a Superstar alumni, weren't they, in that respect?
That's quite a neat little package.
Yeah, you can use that anytime you like, by the way. But you ought to also understand, I guess, at this point, that Marcia Hines only released her first single, that is Fire and Rain, in 1975. So this is all before any of these people were really famous. This is what made them famous in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Funnily enough, I was having a chat with a bloke at work. This is an odd story, but it makes sense, who loves this woman, this song, Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress.
Yep, the Hollies.
Thinking that I'd never heard it before. But Dad was part of this group called Duck in 1971-72, and they were like the top musicians around Melbourne and Sydney putting together this super group to do a covers album and put it out there. It's now this really rare record. And Dad sings Maybe I'm Amazed and the Paul McCartney song and a Stone song and a few others and this Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. So I knew it off the top of my head. And the only reason he couldn't do more stuff with this group Duck was because he landed the role of Judas. So there's a note in the record sleeve that says Jon English, sort of like a promotional thing. Yeah, Jon English is now Judas, by the way. So go see Superstar.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, I've got to get my hands on a copy of that. Maybe I'm Amazed, because in my mind, Maybe I'm Amazed is undoubtedly the very finest piece of McCartney music post-Beatles. It is just a magnificent song. Both there's the live version on Rings Over America and also on his live album, and his studio album.
It's a cracker, and Dad, to his credit, at the age of 21, never stepped foot in front of a microphone in the studio before. He just nails it. It's a really, really good version.
There's your homework for you. You have to let me know how I can find a copy of that. Now, fast forward through the 70s, he was doing Hollywood 7, he was doing Turn the Page, he was doing all sorts of things. Bang, suddenly he turns up on our TV screens as a criminal, a convict. That's probably a better word for it. A convict, because he'd probably been a criminal in Homicide a few times.
He'd that's actually how he landed the role. He was typecast with the Crawfords guys for being the villain because he was so good at it as Judas. So he was forever this, nasty rock and roll kind of hippie bloke who was into drugs and killing Gary McDonald and all sorts of other people. Abigail, I think he got Abigail in one of them, I think. And yes, the Pegasus guys, the production at Crawfords, they said, look, we're going to do this First Fleet miniseries about the Irish convicts, and let's use John as the romantic lead and really throw him for six. And yeah, Dad stepped up. He definitely was thinking, have you got the right John when they cast him? So I think John Waters was doing All the Rivers Run around the same time.
Yeah, and he was in Rush as well. He would have been my thought, but anyway.
Exactly.
But I can remember it. Remember it being on TV, and as far as I was concerned, Jon English was this rock star, and suddenly he's dressed in the Sovereign Hill gear, and he's wandering around, singing Six Ribbons, and not only that, of course, he wrote the soundtrack with Mario Millo. I mean, it's not, he's no slouch, this bloke.
He did, and it was, that just goes to show you the energy and the commitment to music that he had across everything he did. He was like, who's doing your soundtrack? We can do some music for you, not a problem.
Yeah.
That song actually wound up going number one in parts of Europe, like Norway and Sweden, and did really well across those sort of territories. So it launched his career overseas a lot. And when I was born in '82, he was in between tours in Scandinavia with this rock band. So he was doing really well over there for quite some time, all off the back of Against the Wind and Six Ribbons.
I saw him live at Dallas Brooks Hall. How does that sound? How old does that make me sound? In 1983, a week after my 21st birthday. There you go. Everyone's now working out how old I am. You've already told us you're 44. I'm 63. And he was just a ripping bloke, the way he supported his football teams as well. And my old football team, Fitzroy, was doing it tough. He put on a concert at Dallas Brooks Hall to launch the very excellent Some People album, which had one or two really good songs on it that should have been hits that never were. I don't know why. But he donated all of the takings for that event to the Fitzroy Football Club and staved off the merge for another couple of years.
Yes, he was a mighty Fitzroy supporter, and I actually had a Fitzroy lion that was bigger than me when I was about 3. He brought it back, big stuffed toy. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, they moved to Brisbane, and I sort of lost touch with the whole thing. But we were up in Sydney. We played the other egg-shaped one, which was rugby league. He loved his Parramatta Eels as well. So he very cheekily sung the VFL Grand Final, 81, Carlton Collingwood, is it?
Yep.
And he's wearing blue and gold underneath Parramatta, doing his waltzing Matilda.
And then we see him pop up on Gilbert and Sullivan. Like, I mean, seriously, is there anything this bloke couldn't do? You know, musical theatre, and I'm not talking Judas. I'm talking, the Pirate King and all that sort of stuff with Simon Gallagher.
Oh, and such a tremendous production. I was very young when he did the first one with the VSO, but I remember it's actually one of my earliest memories is him falling off the ship, and I thought he'd hurt himself, but of course he was play acting.
Yep.
And that role, that Pirate King role, was the closest to who he was like as a dad when he'd come home. He was just rollicking around and being a complete buffhead of the best kind, and imaginative and silly and wonderful for little kids. Really, really great fun. We had tremendous times on the road with Gilbert and Sullivan. I used to go on my school holidays and do work experience with the sound guys, or go sit in the orchestra pit, because there's always fun and games going on there.
Yeah. Well, and then, of course, he stuck his toe in the water with a very young Jane Hall and a very young Steve Jacobs in All Together Now. And that was a comedic acting thing. So I think he is so incredibly underrated by the Australian music industry. How on earth he doesn't have an ARIA Hall of Fame is beyond me, and I don't want you to comment because it might sound a bit biased. But I think I just scratch my head. I mean, the man was an absolute creative genius, and there's not many who, in my mind, line up next to him in terms of their ability to do lots of things really well. Yeah, sure, there might be some better singers, and yeah, there might be some better actors, but the whole complete package thing, I really struggle to find someone more significant in my lifetime in Australia, and I think that's sort of the best I can do.
It's an incredible compliment to pay to him, and it's a really respectful one. I really appreciate that, Neil. I think in all essences, you kind of nailed it on the head when you said you can't know why he hasn't been recognised by the music industry like that. Is because he was so versatile, and he was just as much a darling of the theatre stages, and he was just as much at home on the TV screens, in the lounge rooms there. He was, everything he did, he wanted to tell a story. He was a remarkable storyteller, is the way I've always put it. And if he was going to be Bobby Rivers and they were going to say, wear this silly hat and be a bit out of it, he was like, but I'm going to make it funny for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And same thing with Pirate King. I'm not just going to go out and swashbuckle and be ravenous. I'm going to be kind of great and funny with it. Don't worry. It's always about landing it with the audience, with Dad. And I did a lot of live shows with him. Again, as a teenager, I did work experience and with the road crew and setting up gigs and doing that sort of thing, and started playing bass on stage with him. And he just said, just watch and understand that you've always got to have a good time out here, and then they're going to have a good time. And he was the best teacher. I can't explain it to you more than that.
Yeah, I got that sense. Yeah, just an extraordinary performer. Now, I told you I'd take up 10 minutes of your evening, and we've gone 17 minutes and we haven't got to the reason for being on yet. So that's fine. It doesn't worry me. I can sit here and chat about him all night. But I should let you go because you are a young dad and, you know, you've probably got people screaming in the background. But that's okay. We can't hear them, so that's all that matters. The reason that we've specifically asked you to come and talk to us tonight is that our friend Robert Rigby, who runs a fantastic organisation called Ambition Records, has worked with you, I know very closely, and a few others, to remaster and has now re-released 3 albums, actually re-released 2 and released 1, that are now available on CD and on the streaming services. Tell us a bit about that.
Look, we went digging through the archives. We'd been planning it for a few years, and then we thought, instead of just releasing them higgledy-piggledy, we wait for 10 years since his passing, you know, and give that moment the respect it needed to be breathed into. And we thankfully got in touch with Marsha Hines' people, the lovely Peter Ricks, who managed my dad for years, and they agreed to re-release Jokers and Queens finally into digital formats and on CD, which had never been. It had only been on vinyl back in the day. And we did a nice repackage of the Six Ribbons Greatest Hits album, which was the thing that Dad put together before he passed away in about 2011, I think. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, my big sort of heart project was the Rarities collection, where I'd been collecting his vinyl, all his B-sides and unreleased things, looking on his old reel-to-reel tapes and cassettes, you name it, and just got everything restored over the years with my own money and trying to find every little bit I could for Dad's catalogue, you know. So you've got the complete thing if you go get it. It's at musiclivesforever.com. Is that the one, I believe?
Great Lives. No, Great Music Lives Forever. That's what it is. Great Lives. No, I'll get it right in a minute. GreatMusicLivesForever.com. So great music. That's easy. GreatMusicLivesForever.com. And if you go there, okay, we're talking about Jon English's music, but there's a whole range of other artists as well that Robert is working on. He's done some work with Karen Keys, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, looking at Jim Keys' work. He's released some stuff with Russell Morris, and he's also working with a few up-and-coming artists as well. So it's not just old people, you know, that need a bit of a run. He's an absolute ripper, Robert. So good on him. GreatMusicLivesForever.com. I think I might have mentioned this on the phone, but I'm going to do a little brag on the radio if it's all right with you. I went looking for my vinyl copy of Jokers and Queens and couldn't find it. I probably either lent it to somebody or something, you know, it goes over the years, because that came out, 75, 76, something like that. And I went looking to buy a copy and found one in a record store in Brisbane that was $20. And I thought, gee, that's all right. It turned up, it had been signed by both Marsha and Jon.
Oh, there you go.
Extraordinary get. And it is now, I'm about to buy myself a frame to put on the wall, because that is just an absolute get for my money. And I'm so thrilled to have it, because obviously, you know, Jon's passing far too early, and a man of such great ability. I've also had the good fortune to interview Marsha over the years as well, and she's just a lovely, lovely lady as well. So it's just an absolute treasure in my collection now, and I'm so pleased to have it.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, Neil. And yeah, it was a wonderful record. I rediscovered that one over the years, and their version of "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" is just out of control. Live at the Melbourne Maya Music Bowl.
Yep, and there's also a version of it, I think, on a Parkinson show that you can see on YouTube as well. So,
that's right.
Jonathon, it is an absolute thrill to have made your acquaintance, and looking forward to catching up with you some stage when I get up to Sydney. But just a wonderful legacy of what your dad left us in terms of his music, now so beautifully restored by Robert, and the work you've done. I know Dad would be really proud of you, and thanks for joining us on Monday Night Live. Just remember that website, folks, greatmusiclivesforever.com. There's no .au.
Thanks for having me, Neil. It's been a real pleasure to be able to just bring some of Dad's stuff back to light again. It's so nice to do. Well,
I'm going to play probably my favourite Jon English track at the back of this. It's a song called Camilla, brought out in 1980. One of your faves?
Absolutely fantastic. There's 2 versions. There's the one with Tommy Emmanuel playing an amazing guitar off the Calm Before the Storm record, and then there's the revised version, which is on the Rarities package done by the Foster Brothers.
Yeah, I think this is the original from 1980.
Oh, fantastic. Enjoy.
Good on you, Jonathon. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Neil.
All
Take
the
care.
best.